Good morning, folks, and welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 422, and today we're going to go outside the box a bit. We're going to be speaking with Jeff Johnsgaard. And if you saw the episode with Dr. Kelly Warden, Kelly suggested that he come on board, and I'm so glad he made that suggestion. In the brief, what Jeff had to add in that conversation was just fascinating as far as enhancing human performance and all that. He touched upon some of that stuff, and today we're going to go deeper into that. So if you have questions, please put them in the right hand column. I will definitely in the comment section, I will get to them. And also, please hit that like button, tell us where you're watching from, and we're just getting started. So without further ado, here he is. Hey, how are you?
Good morning. Doing great. Thank you. How are you, Dean?
Good, yeah. So, much like I just was mentioning in the intro there, I know you didn't go like real deep, but what you touched upon I was finding quite fascinating. And so hence the reason why you're here today. So, but before we get into all that great stuff, just a quick just background on your martial arts training.
Oh, sure. I think judo at the YMCA was where it all started, right? Something like that. Exactly, exactly. But I will simply say that I feel that the actual study of martial arts started when I found, believe it or not, it was Budo Taijutsu. It was ninjutsu, and
Mm.
just flukedly happened to find someone who had legit ties to the grandmaster in Japan, and it wasn't just another, book reading, money making, whatever, right? Yeah, and the rest of it. And so, short version of that is that led me. That wasn't until summer of grade 11, and that's when I feel that martial arts, but there was more to it going on than that, and I had some experience, but very brief, and a little taekwondo, a little karate, a little but and judo, of course, at the Y. And then that led me to Japan, and being with the grandmaster and being around these people that were very high up in that martial art. And the good thing for me there is that there was a lot of esoteric stuff, and
Mm.
so there was a lot of things. It really allowed me to conceptualize and think about things and develop, whether it's mental models or however you want to talk about that, outside the box stuff that wasn't just martial arts exist on the mats when mom drops me off and I do these things. It was a real holistic view of it, from nutrition to, even though I totally disagree now in retrospect, I tried all that stuff, right? Vegetarian, it was like the sickest I ever was, right? But led me down the path of developing what I consider to be one of the biggest strengths I have, and that's a framework for looking at things, for deciding
Okay.
things, for that type of stuff. And so then a few years later, I was introduced to Kelly Warden, to a Grandmaster
Mm.
S. Warden, and I was captivated by him at that time. At that time, that would have been before I went away. I'm just trying to put it in my mind timeline wise, but Kelly was very and is very efficient at movement, and there was a lot of excitement and flash and things like that, and just devastatingly looked, like how could anyone not want to do this? But at
Mm.
the time I had this concept that you shouldn't need any more strength than that of an old man. Like, the technique should be so efficient. And now it's fun to be able to do those things. I'm just making movements for those who can't see. I'm used to, it's just a visual, auditory only podcast. Yeah, exactly. I talk with my hands. I should have been Italian. And so, and so, and so, I was kind of coming. If the point was self defense, which it started off as being for me, but it evolved to something different. If the point was self defense, then there was this like Budo Taijutsu way where, literally, from my experience in that art, you'd have to be like 10 years in before you were any good at a fight. But
Mm.
then this Kelly Warden way, which was like every day you're leaving there with new skills and abilities that you can see are real time, effective strategies as well, conceptualizing as well as physical movement. And so, anyway, so then wrapping that stuff together, and then I guess we'll get to it. But I mean, of course, firearms, in my humble opinion, firearms are self-defense. And so, I mean, really, self-defense occurs far before that. Great books such as Left of Bang, maybe we'll get into that kind of stuff. But I mean, knowing that something's about to evolve, even politically, in your neighborhood, whatever that might be, having sensitization to that, and then negating it or getting left of bang that early. But certainly, the firearms as self-defense. So I was led into that path, knowing I was, police officer. So 20-year police officer, as I sit here with you today, although I'm not even in my house right now, but I'm visiting a friend currently. 20-year police detectives, trainer and that type of thing. And then we can talk more about that. I'm sure that's where this is going to go. But yeah, if firearms are self-defense, not that the other things aren't, stick knife, mindset, abilities with physical control, all that, I absolutely agree with those things. And being from Canada, I wasn't even allowed to carry a gun off duty as a police officer. And so, it was like, holy crap, you really have to be good with other things, or to at least feel like you have safety, walking around with your daughter, and you see people that you've arrested, that type of stuff right downtown. Yeah. So anyway, so there's a multifaceted thing in there, but then led me down the path of firearms, only because they're another tool. And I guess, so I've been with Datu for many, many years, decades now, and firearms as well as a thing, a unique system there I'm sure you'll ask about. But only because it's a tool. And then, so I would consider myself to be pretty good, I guess, with FMA type stuff. And I consider myself to be proficient when it comes to firearms, especially solo and small teams based stuff. You and your wife, you and a team, you and a partner, right? That type of stuff. And then, but what I really think, and I think that kind of resonated with you, Dean, was that, if I had, well, certainly not a superpower, it'd be like a type B superpower or something like that, but it would be that learning to learn, learning to be more efficient, learning to be more, just as a person, but especially with skills, especially when it comes to what I really consider my forte to be is time compressed, high stakes, ambiguous circumstances, right? So when there's not enough light to even know what's in his hand, when there's not enough time to recognize, because in a quarter of a second, if I'm in a driver's seat, I could shoot at a cop. In a quarter of a second, that's 250 milliseconds. You can't react that quickly, or can you? And that took me down that path, learning to learn better, learning about the brain. Yeah, and all that.
My ears, like, the reactionary gap, like how much time, you know what I mean? Like, I love everything you're speaking on. Like you said, the analogy you just gave, like, it's the visibility is, bleak and right, you're not even seeing what's in his hand. And like, I'm a huge component of that, what I give to my students as far as monitoring hands, what are they doing? They're reaching for the pocket, they're not giving you money. And that reactionary gap, that perception reaction, and when visibility is an issue, and then pending the proximity they're even starting at, those are, that could be a tough scenario.
Right. So just imagine, it's not just vision, which is extremely important and something I teach, I would say over the top, especially with firearms and martial arts, because we have to understand perceptions there's multiple perceptions, right? I can hear things, I can feel a cold breeze in my house all of a sudden and know, hey, is that a window that's open? I mean, I can be attuned to my environment, hence the left of bang kind of idea as well. But when it comes to vision, are you familiar, for example, with your foveal vision? Is that a term that you've heard before?
No.
Okay.
Not that I can recall anyhow.
Let's do that. So I'm just going to back up my chair a little bit, but do this with me, Dean. And so extend your arm and put your thumb up. And now your thumbnail I'm going to back up some more. At arm's length, your thumbnail represents about 2 to 3 degrees of visual angle. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. So at arm's length, your thumbnail on the average person, so it's just a rough guesstimate, But as I look across the street, I can cover that entire mailbox and post across the street. And if I look in this room, I'm not sure what you can see. What's
Yeah.
the counter here? I can cover that, almost that whole thing. So just imagine that the center of your eye, right? And we can talk about the rods and cones, and it's super interesting. And we can do it another time. But light is a physical thing, right? Like the smallest particle of light is a photon, but it's a physical thing, and it's traveling in waves, and the height of those waves and the breadth of those waves dictates, is it in the visual spectrum or not, that type of idea. So out of all the wavelengths there are from here to here, this little component is all that is the visual that you can see with your naked eye, right? Roy G. Biv, back to grade 4 or 5, right? The colors of the rainbow. And with a little bit of technology, you can go to the right or left one space, ultraviolet, right? If you had that fancy light you never want to use in a hotel room. And then, infrared. My wife jokes with me all the time that I'm so warm, especially at night. If the predator was ever chasing me, I'd be done for. I'd just be glowing red, right? but giving off so much heat, right? But, so with a little bit of technology, you can see a little bit more. So just imagine that this light is traveling on waves through the window as it is right now, for example, goes through the lens. It's important. The lens is important because there's muscles all the way around it called the ciliary muscles. And those muscles are very important to us because when they expand, like when they work, they focus the image on the back of our eye, which is this retina. It's just important to know. I know this is a bit of maybe over the top, but it's not over the top. If you understand the mechanism of these things, it's everything. So back to this foveal vision. At the center of your eye, you've got this thing called the fovea, and that's made up mostly of, for those who care, they're cones. Rods are the cells on the periphery. And the center, I believe it's only like 1.4 or 1.2 millimeter. It's very, very small. And there's there's like 4.5 million of these cones in there. And that's the center vision. Okay. Now it's super important to know that central vision is the only place you see color and detail. So now I go back to that thumbnail. So as the viewers, unless you're driving, please don't do this, but right, as the viewer could just extend your arm and your thumbnail up. So if you were covering my face right now, you could see about this much of it. Unless I was further back, then the thumbnail would be more of it, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so now just imagine that if I'm standing there with my hands like this, you take your thumbnail and look at this hand, then look at this hand, then look at my face, now look at my belt line to see if I got a knife or a weapon or a badge. You can only see one of those things at any time clearly.
Yes.
And
okay,
I pause for effect, right? Because if I were to step out and go, hey, and you've got a weapon system or something like that, well, first of all, you're probably blocking your vision the way you're holding your gun. So, how are you holding it? Second of all, you have to discriminate. Am I a shoot, a no shoot? Who am I? What am I? And that's in good lighting. You have to be able to, now look at my eyes, hand, concurrent activity, getting my gun out because I see a gun, but also looking hand, belt line, weapons badge up to center mass. Is there police insignia or on the shoulder? He's not a shoot, he is a shoot. And all that has to happen in, right, hundredths of a millisecond. So how do you train that? Well, you have to train it on purpose because most people aren't even conceptualizing that's a thing rather than a skill set that is actually trainable.
Be developed. Right. They're not even recognizing, like you said, it's a thing. They're certainly not going to put time to develop something.
Now, we've got people who have risen to the occasion, who are on team, unit whatever, right, and had all this experience, and they've made it to that point. And so I wrote an article. It's free on my website. Please go to it for anybody interested, on the levels of learning and competence. And so you're probably familiar with the 4 standard. The one at the bottom, like as you would escalate to go through it, would be unconscious incompetence. I didn't know. And now consciously incompetent, I now know there's things I didn't know. Conscious competence, I can practice it or I can do it, but I have to use a lot of keyword attention in order to concentrate on it. And then I get to a point where hopefully no attention is needed and I can unconsciously, competently do the skills. Yes? Well, there's 3 more levels to that are useful. The article, I write 2 more of them. The top level there conceptually is conscious competence of unconscious competence. I stole that from Ken Murray, who actually stole it from a guy named Richard Bandler, who is a co-inventor of neurolinguistic programming, NLP. And so what that means is that you can do, that you can do things without thinking about them. So in my mind, that would be like an upper level. I don't like the word mastery because it sounds like an end state. I don't want to be complete.
Like punctuation, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like that would be a master an advanced instructor or something. That I know that I can do things without thinking about it. I know that Dean can't wax on, wax off like I can because tendons, joints, structure, length of the arm, whatever that is, trigger press, that kind of idea. So I'm not just going to tell him how to move in the ultimate technical fashion. I'm going to use the framework and teach him the principles so that he can make them his and own them. And there's a real key point that I'm super into, and that is that experts don't replicate techniques. Experts replicate outcomes. Right. So Nikolai Bernstein, long ago in Russia, the Russians said, "Hey, PhD, we want you to look at metal workers, right, slamming the anvil onto the and making things out of metal, and we want you to see what makes the experts and what do they have that the others don't." And he said, "No problem." And back in the day, and basically put some lights on them so we could see the path of travel of the hammer onto the anvil, right? And short version again, we can dive in on any of this, but the point is that slow down the film and could see. But what he found is experts did not have a way of doing it. There was the most variation in travel of swing, way more than the novices. But what they did have was bang, right on the button every time. The end result was absolutely there. But the variation to get there was dramatically more for expert performers. They don't replicate techniques. And so this led me down the ecological path. For those who haven't heard, some great books. I think it's called How We Move, or by Arizona professor Rob Gray. And so the ecological framework is what I apply to Kelly Warden's teachings, what I apply to firearms, what I'm applying to everything, because it's helping us to be more efficient. And I can tell you about that, as in, like, how do I know? Because that's a very important question. It's not just an opinion, right? And so what that means is that gone are the days of like doing the rote practice without it linked to context. And so just imagine, how many times are you doing the movement in FMA, and if you have new people, they don't know what's happening from the supposed bad guy or the attacker or the whatever that they are linking that movement to, that response to. So the ecological perspective says no training ever without linking perception to the action. Gone is just the action. Gone is standing in a booth doing firearms training on this target that stands like this, that isn't even a deadly force threat, rather than moving, rather than what's evolving. You see what I mean? That training is delinking the perception from the action, and we want to couple that every time, all the time. That leads to better, and the fancy words for it are retention and transfer. So I've got hundreds of scientific papers done on motor learning, physical skills, things like that. All comes from a course that I help teach now, Methods of Instruction, invented by a man named Chris Butler, a retired police officer. When you're done that course, there's 150 peer-reviewed journal articles on why you should train driving, self-defense, firearms, right? FMA, absolutely, all that stuff in this manner. Once again, back to those words, retention and transfer, because retention means that you remembered it, so you retained it, and transfer means that after time passes, under a novel stimulus environment, when it's not the same situation you trained it in, you were able to go, and bring out your skill at that time.
Yeah.
Transfer is what matters if self-defense is your thing. If you're doing a competitional movement or kata or something of that nature, well, then absolutely, you can train it in that context for that
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so now I've said a whole bunch of stuff, but back to foveal vision. So that the understanding, and I'm just waving my thumb around like that, that you have to see an object. It has to be stable on your fovea. What did I just whip by here? Well, you probably think it was my phone because I had my phone earlier. So now we're talking about how do I know? Was I primed? Oh, there's a gun at scene. Well, now I've got my gun out, and as soon as I see a cell phone in their hand, I might be shooting because I've been biased to believe. Did I actually confirm? When does that happen? But I was looking at my front sight to line it up with the bad guy because we're told to look at our front sight. And now we get into a higher quality of conversation about actual self-defense, about the way people move, learn, think, and decide. And without this knowledge of this stuff, we're lost. We're lost.
It's just wow, 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 wow. I mean, that was incredible. Matter of fact, comments are from Andres. This is super interesting. Yeah, it is, folks. If you got questions, take advantage. But yeah, I mean, that I just find it's just so fascinating. Like you were mentioning, piggying back, like exactly, like you're in this confrontation, regardless of the weapon or what's going on. But like, yeah, you're watching their center mass, their head, they're both their hands, and right. I mean, like you're taking these bits of information, but much to what you mentioned, you're focusing on one thing, even though the connections or the gap in time might be very quick when you're moving on to the next area of sight. But still, what do
Right.
you in regards to what you just talked about? That does peripheral play anything into it? I
Oh,
mean, in other
great
words,
question, Dean. Yeah, really good question. So
so if I just do a
absolutely
blank
it does.
stare,
So
like,
just know, without putting all the how many milliseconds and things like that into the, because I doubt your listeners are real keen on knowing the Gucci science on it. I think it's amazing and
I'm a
super.
nerd. I
But
think it is too. Yeah.
yeah, but like so, just that foveal vision, your reaction time is a little bit less. Your reaction time is faster for peripheral vision. And
Nice.
so then in the martial arts, there's been a couple of there's been some really great research on a gaze anchor, Gaze, my gaze, my eye gaze. I place it up, like let's say in boxing, right? I place
Mm.
upper chest about here, and I kind of leave my focus, my foveal vision there, but I attend to the peripheral. I think it's a Gracie drill. Ring the bell. I'm pretending that there's a bell on each shoulder, and then I'm slapping, like, so you and I are
Yes,
standing
we do.
square,
Matter of fact,
and I
I didn't
ask,
know where that came from, but that's what I do with my students. And I'll get like, okay, you're gonna tell me when you pick this up, and we'll play with the gaps of space, of course, depending on their ability or experience and that. But much to your point, where you just said, like that whole peripheral where you're picking up, as opposed to like, okay, I'm zoning in on his right shoulder. You know what I
great.
mean?
So that's exactly it, Dean. So you're doing the right thing, and I just want to iron sharpens iron. If I can make sure you understand the mechanism and the purpose, then now it's even going to be like you're going to exponentially increase the ability there. So imagine this: attention. Remember, a key phrase. What the heck is attention? And
Mhm.
knowing that you've only got so much of it, I only have so much attention in my glass. There's only so much that exists. And if I have to use attention to find my phone, and I take attention off what I'm perceiving, and therefore, even if I can't perceive it, I'll never react to it, right? And so, heaven forbid, that's a weapon system because I have an ingrained unconscious competence, automatic response into how I handle my gun when it goes click and I wanted to bang, for example, right? So now imagine that there's a really useful thing here called Nideffer's quadrants of attention. So just imagine I make a plus sign so that there's quadrants. There's four
Okay.
quad, and I can be either externally focused or internally focused. I can be internal and external, narrow or broad. So what that means is just imagine right now as you're sitting there, Dean, I want you to go internal focus, your focus of attention, and just focus on whatever your foot touching the floor. Just focus on your trigger finger alone. Just focus on the grip of the thing or the whatever. But now I want you to go internal broad, maybe the swing, right, of that stick, right? I want you to feel your shoulders on the recoil of the gun in relation to your hips. I don't know, broad versus, right? Or the surprise, shock, and awe of some tragedy or something happening, you screeching tires, seeing your kid on the ground on the street, internal, oh my God, what's happening? And this now you're taken away from the incident, right? Now, conversely, you can be external, external broad, external narrow. Narrow would be that foveal vision. Broad would be the thing. So I'm a batter at home plate. I see the outfield coming in broad. I know the positions of the players. I then external narrow focus on what exactly the pitcher's wrist, perhaps, or something like that. And so this is a super good question that you've asked, Ed, because it really unpacks a lot of things. So how do we know what what expert performers, let's say in baseball, are paying attention to? Well, they've done occlusion studies, and all that means is they've taken pictures and they filmed them, then they had batters standing in front of them, and they occluded. They put a black box over their hips. They found they still were hitting great. Okay, so it wasn't that information. They put a black box over their face. They were still hitting great. They put a black box over their shoulder. They still were hitting great. They put a black box over their wrist and elbow angle. Oh, all of a sudden, they weren't hitting so well.
Interesting.
That because experts just do things, they probably don't even know what they're doing. Heaven forbid they can pass that information on, key phrase, with purpose, on purpose. Conscious competence of unconscious competence, right?
You know what? You're touching on something far as teaching. Like some folks say, man, he is so incredible what he does, but he can't relay the information. And I think much to your point is because they're such in this zone of like habitual, it just comes out where again, where they're not making conscious thought about it and all that, but yet to relay that to a student sometimes, if they're not dove into what you're speaking on, could be very challenging, you know?
Well, that's exactly the point. So once again, if I had a superpower, it's that. It's going to expert performers have me come in literally to their firearm, to their dojo, right? And I unpack and convey that information to the students in a more optimal manner, as is evidenced by that student's ability, retention, and transfer. If we just block train something, repetition, 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 we absolutely get better at it. But if we train it in a way, it's called desirable difficulties. I believe it's UCLA, Doctors Bjork, BJORK. And we train it, we interleave it or space out the practice, or we try to increase retention and transfer by doing so. So remember, block practice, you get up to there with your ability, but doing it this other way, you don't get as good. So I look in Dean's class and everybody's way up here kicking butt. I look at Jeff's class and they're way down here. And I go, well, I obviously want to do it the way Dean's doing it. But then after time passes, Dean's group falls down like this, block practice, their abilities, and Jeff's group loses almost nothing, if anything. What would you rather have? And there was a police academy study done after 168 hours of use of force training, firearms, control tactics, all the rest of it. They found that after 6 weeks, they couldn't do a complex motor skill. They couldn't do a gun takeaway anymore to a functional level. 6 weeks after spending millions of dollars on them. And then they found after 2 weeks, let me get this right. 6 weeks was a gross motor skill. That was baton striking. 2 weeks after was the gross motor skill, was the complex thing, the taking away the gun. And that was police academies, major police academies, Eastern, Central, and Western USA, thousands of recruits a year. And what did they find was the issue? The learning wasn't sticky, which is just a term, great book, by the way, called Make It Stick. Gotta read that one. I don't have required reading, but it's required reading.
Make it stick. I'm writing it down now.
Yeah, maybe we could throw it in the links or whatever. The title, the cover of it's blue. I think there's a star on it. I want to say Dr. Brown, 3 authors, but yeah, Make It Stick. Amazing book. Get it on Audible if you're not a reader. And he talks about all these desirable difficulties and things, right? So bringing it back around to what that means with attention. Well, you're never going to remember something if you don't attend to it in the first place. So attention is the currency of our age. We got to understand, how can I go into a bout of learning knowing how much, yes, Chad Bailey just put it in there.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the comment now. Dr. Brown, that's the book, Chad. Thank you. Amazing book. How do we then make sure that people's attention is kept up? Because we can't be on all the time either, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's
like
not
business, I mean, like you drive.
correct. Yeah, you can't have a 90-minute new learning bout. All right. So then how do we structure the training? How do I structure my classes when guys come in for some sticky knifey on Monday, Wednesday, Friday? How do I structure it? But well, we reverse engineer it from the desired end state, right? And what's the desired end state? Well, maybe that is that self-defense as a framework. Well, then I'm going to show you how to grip a gun in this manner. But if it's competition shooting, which I have some people, I work privately with people all over the place, because I mean, you can just do it on Zoom, right? So, but I teach you how to grip a gun slightly different, because you have a different end state. Competition shooting. I will go, I don't have a pistol with me right now, but I will jump straight to a final firing grip in a competition, because I'll set up my gear, I'll be shooter ready, and I know it's exactly where I want it to be. But in self-defense, I take 4 fingers and I find the gun first, touch point 1, then I drive onto it to a final firing grip, because posturally, I could be in a different space. My gun could have been moved. I could be seated instead of standing. I could be whatever else. So what I'm saying here is that you need a framework for evaluating that information, and then you need to teach it in a manner that is goal-orientated, principles-driven, not this is the angle of the wrist and the thing and the whatever, because experts don't even replicate that, right?
Exactly. I mean, right. I mean, like, again, that when I was using that analogy, like one of the great instructors in FMA that's constantly quoted, well, he was phenomenal, but was he a good teacher? Is Illustrissimo, like the things he could do, and people trying to replicate by video and all that, because he constantly changed pending number of circumstances. But much is the best analogy I can come up with from an FMA lens. But just to make the point, I get what you're saying. Yeah, 100%. As far as the experts don't replicate, you know what I mean?
Right on. So now we can say, so now that dove me into further with neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis and things, because language is an imperfect form of communication. If I ask you to draw me a lamp, I'll get a desk lamp and a genie's lamp, and that lamp from that librarian you remember from grade 6, or something like that, right? And but I said lamp, but I said slow trigger press, but I said X pattern, but I said, that's not sharp. We have to have, if you're going to be a quality instructor, you need to have the ability to understand where your student is at. And you do that not by telling. It's not instructor-centered learning. It's student-centered learning.
Amen.
So the gift is, like, my ability is to have 30 people in front of me, and you get 5 more pounds on your bar today, Dean. But it's a different 5 pounds than that guy and that girl and that guy, because we know how to seek first to understand what you understand, knowing what the desired end state is. So I'm not going to give you all the same compass bearing to walk on, because you don't all start from the same point. So you're not going to get to where we need to go. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so by sharpening that, with questions, Socratic questioning, knowledge will then build on knowledge. I listen to the words you're using to describe what you just did with the technique or with the whatever, what you viewed, the meaning you extracted from what you saw. And I say those words back to you. Therefore, I'm building rapport because I'm talking your language. And that could go down the visual auditory kinesthetic pathway, which is, talk, which is a very good talk to have. There's some science recently that says, well, we're not only just one of those things. Well, no kidding. Of course we're not. So don't worry about it. Does it make better results in the student after time passes? That's what I'm after.
Yeah, obviously just by listening to you there, it's just so wonderful, like, to hear you on that, because I was always wondering about that peripheral aspect that I'm trying to play catch up with you. It's just,
sorry, brother.
No, it's incredible stuff. incredible stuff. You know, because I always wondered about that. It's just like, wait a minute, I'm picking up more information on peripheral. Like, why would I zone in on something? You know?
I feel bad now. So let me give a
No, no, no. You should not feel bad. Seriously.
No, no, no. Let me give a concrete example, because I'm one of my main things is you can listen to, like, if someone's going to listen to me talk for an hour, I want them to have something that they can like go and use right away that's usable, right? The Kelly Worden approach to self-defense. So on that note, the closer I get to someone, the less distance I have, therefore the less time.
100% and less options,
So
right?
the closer I get to you, the further away my gun should be getting, for example. Okay, absolutely. Now, imagine I'm at a doorway. There could be someone on the other side of that door. So I have to always be prepared for someone popping out. And I have to have, so it's not a surprise, because if it's a surprise, I've already lost the initiative to scan them. So now when you do that ring the bell drill, what we're teaching them is if I'm close to them, where I don't want to get captivated by my foveal vision, by what's in their hand, and then therefore I've got a blind spot. Yeah. So now boxing, gaze anchor, put my vision here, attend to these points. That's the drill that helps them with that. They're reacting faster. But now in a martial art or a situation where my legs become weapons too, I want that anchor to be a little lower, and now I'm attending to 4 points. Okay. Yes. Okay. But now, what happens when all of a sudden there's just a pen, but there's a weapon, a knife, or something like that? Well, have you ever heard of role players getting shot in the hand by cops in scenarios? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay. Well, that's a thing in our community. Role players. When the actor comes out with the gun or the knife, cops shoot the shit out of their hand. And why is that? Because their foveal vision is captivated by the thing that's going to hurt them. We're used to what is called gaze action coupling, G-A-Z-E, my eye and my action. I drive the gun towards what I'm looking at, which is their hand, and I shoot pretty darn accurately with 30 feet in their hand and the weapon. Do you know that, and this is, I'm going to tie this together for the viewers now, cops, because we keep stats on cops, we don't keep stats on civvies. You know, if I was to look at the threat environment for a police officer, it's going to be very close up, over 50% of cops killed by guns in the line of duty, 50% over within 5 feet.
5 feet.
70% within 10. And 80% within 20 feet. Pause for a second. Okay. So if you're a civvy, it's probably that close or closer as well, right? I mean, like I would be,
right? Yeah.
Right? So it's also typically a handgun. And what that tells us is it's rapidly evolving, right? So we have these time compressed, ambiguous, because I don't know exactly what's going on, rapidly evolving, high stakes circumstances. And by the time I go, holy crap, it's over, or I could be hit. Now, where are those officers hit? 64% of the time in the head and neck.
Head and neck. Okay.
86% of the time, head, neck, and upper chest.
Okay.
By the bad guy. Why are they hit there? Remember gaze action coupling?
Yeah.
Where is the bad guy looking?
Right.
Right? And he's driving the gun towards what he's looking at, because he's in a situation. I'm getting activated here just thinking about it, putting myself there. So then we need to learn how to get our head and neck off the line of attack, checking that, however close I am, concurrent activity. And while that's happening, sorry for those of you not watching the video, I have to be discriminating. I'm just showing you how I'd be moving my head and eyes. Is that a shoot or not a shoot? And so we can sliver that moment down and train that skill on purpose. Why is it I'm able to discriminate? Is that a shoot or not? Was that a gun or a knife or not? This rapidly evolving thing towards my face. And get concurrent activity, to weapon presentation, for example.
When you say concurrent activity, do you mean simultaneous actions?
Correct. Okay. Because you have to STFD, slow it down, and train it on purpose that way, understanding these systems and then building it up.
So
I'm told
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now back to your, where do I anchor my gaze? Well, what am I being captivated by? If that's the thing that's going to hurt me, I need to teach them to shift their eyes where they want the bullet to go and hold it there. And that's
Mm.
called the quiet eye and gaze action coupling. I got 3 articles on it on my website. Feel free to, download and read them. But there's
I'm
an
definitely
actual
website after. Yeah, I got that.
yeah, no, absolutely. It's all free for your viewers. Of course, I'm careful not to put too much on there because I don't want to train bad people. But your viewers can read it, and it's certainly
No,
content.
it's like
You know,
that fine line. You don't want to give too much, but yet you want them to get them where you can be helpful, right? Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So Dr. Joan Vickers put very fancy eye tracking glasses on expert performers. She's done that in shooting sports, in basketball, in hockey, and it has been replicated a ton. I
Okay.
happen to be through Ken Murray. I happen to be associated with like tier 1 soldiers who
Tier
have the
one.
money to do that as well. And we found some amazing things. Imagine if I could put eye trackers on you. These tier 1 soldiers, these very best of the best soldiers, are training new soldiers. And so what these glasses do is they show us that thumbnail where the foveal vision is. So they did a bunch of entries. They found that out of all their expert performers, there was about 6 different looking scanning patterns on a dump entry. It doesn't matter if you understand what I'm saying or not. Just imagine their experts had about 6 different ways of looking at a room when they walked in, right?
No, no,
Then,
no.
yeah. Then we had the recruits or the young ones come in and do an entry. We found which of the 6 experts did your Dean's scanning pattern look most like. We then showed you the video of what you did and how your eyes were not efficient, and showed you what the one that was efficient, and had you practice it on purpose now that you knew when you walked into a room with a tray of food in the cafeteria.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. You're
and
taking, okay. Yeah.
normally it took years, a couple of years for people to get up to that level, and they were never really those expert performers for some time afterward. Within a few months, they were up to that level.
Because of
And so,
intentful practice.
right? So how do you know where your student in firearms, especially, but FMA, absolutely. How do you know, bringing it together now, key point, attention, everyone who's been listening, right? Key point here is, what are they attending to? External, internal. I want high performance lives external. So tunnel vision is the hallmark of expert performance. It's not a bad thing. It's just
Yeah,
that,
because you got tunnel vision. You can't look.
right?
Yeah, but
Experts, Dean, know what to tunnel in on
right.
and when. Other people get tunneled in on the thing in the hand and shoot the hand because they don't know, that's information, now I do this with it. Because we've never trained it. We've never even asked them through a Socratic method, through a seeking first. They have no attention on those things. And yet they're going through the patterns and the knife and the whatever all the time.
Yeah, there's such parallel because one of my majors is teaching emptying against knife, which is a nightmare. And one of the things I do is get into that peripheral, like, taking all the information and zoning in and tunnel vision, if you will, and that. And this is just phenomenal stuff. The comments, great quote, trained it on purpose. Rodney Hill, this man is making excellent points. I've been in law enforcement for over 20 years, and he's stating heavy truth. Oh, you got a fellow officer. Well, this could be.
Thank you for your service, Rodney. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's resonating. I want it to be actionable, though. So, guys, if you're doing anything you're doing, just reach out or ask a question. How does this apply to? And I'll tell you, in my opinion, of course, it's just my opinion. This is how to teach soccer this way to my daughter. This is how to
But this is what I'm getting at. Everything you're doing, like one of the things I was going to ask you, and you've kind of already answered it indirectly, somewhat directly, is that obviously what you're speaking on can be transferred to, anything. I know you're using gun as the template for example and all that, but great stuff.
Well, so if I can deal with, literally life-threatening, rapidly evolving, where I don't have time to even, like, it's pre-OODA loop. OODA loops kind of like 2 seconds and longer, where I can start to put it into that observe, orientate, decide, and act. We're talking pre-OODA loop. It's happening system 1 thinking. If you read Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, or Recognition Prime Decision Making, Gary Klein's work, shadow box stuff, which I think we talked about with that too. I can't remember. I've done 3 podcasts in the last week now, so I don't even remember.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I would have given you a break. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I love this stuff. But my bad, I can't. I have a great memory, Dean. It's just really short. So,
my memory's great. It's just after a day. It goes.
Right. So yeah. Anyway. So once again, what are your students attending to? The elbow angle, the knife thing, the whatever. And then are we setting them up for failure because they're never going to see that object to know object recognition if I'm teaching them to do this thing to the knife, but that thing to the gun, but that thing to the ashtray or whatever. You're setting them up for failure because they're never going to know what is in the hand.
What's even in the hand?
Right? So it has to be stable on the fovea for 50 milliseconds or longer at best in a well-lit environment when they're not just captivated by it and their attention is nowhere near processing it. Does that make sense?
Totally, but you hit the key thing, like where it's somewhat visible. I mean, like you were saying that point 50, right?
Right.
Jeez.
So then hopefully you're talking to them about if you're that close to someone, where do you have your hands? What are you cueing on? If they were to move, how can you jam the shoulder or the delivery system, maybe passing it to the outside, which buys you a moment in order to deploy or smother and what's the principle? The elbow, right? If you can control that elbow inside or outside, then you're helping. And
that's so funny because we have in the system, I do 2 points of contact, meaning like you're stifling the ambush, so to speak. You're stifling, whether it's shoulder check, jam, and while you're going, you know what I mean? But it's basically what you're saying. So it's kind of neat. It's kind of affirming what I'm doing is right.
Good. And so now what language are you using, Dean? No, put your hand here. No, put your elbow on the wrist.
That's probably I could use help in. I'm sure of it. Yeah.
Sorry, say that again?
That's probably where I could use definitely help in and improve upon. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, and I'm here for you, right? And, there's a great book, The Language of Coaching, as well. So now, instead of telling them, you're eliminating feedback in your student when you tell them to put more hand on the left side of the gun or to grip the thing in this manner. Because you're telling them what to do, they have no internal check for why they're doing it, and more importantly, when. Remember, perception to action. You eliminate their perception because you just told them what to do. So instead, have them grab onto you and see how that doesn't work so well. You can't control my elbow. Well, how can you control my elbow better? Oh, I don't know. Don't tell them, right? But now they start to figure it out, and now that's a little drill which is completely wrapped in context.
Man,
you understand what I'm saying?
I absolutely do, and I think that right there, like have them do it, have them find it, and then give the feedback.
And then when they're done, so talk to me about that, Dean. Well, I found that blah 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 blah. Okay, so and what did you notice, and how did that go? All right, now try it on this guy because he's bigger. They're smaller, and there's variation. And that's what matters in our sport of self-defense, right? Is really what we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
So then. Yeah, now the lighting changes. There's more people at sea. I mean, how do you learn to fight multiple people? Well, you learn to fight one person really well so that I can position you and me in any manner in order to do the things that is necessary for multiple people engagements. Well, and how do you start? Well, you start that from the beginning with the principles, right? So where is your attention? Where, are you in external or internal? In training, it's fine to be internal, because that builds out your concept for the well, you can call it a mental model or whatever. Depends on which kind of flavor you're going with for teaching. But then performance needs to live external, right?
I'm just writing some of this stuff down. This is incredible. The feedback. That's wow. I'm gonna check comments, make sure no questions came in.
Well, and I pulled mine up, so I'll read them as well. Has to be universal. Works with all weapons. Absolutely. Good info. I appreciate it, Stan. Yeah, absolutely. I'm
Stand
surprised
up.
even up and listening right now on the live. I'm sure it'll be. Please pass the recording out to people if you found value in it, and they'll.
Oh, I'm gonna spread this. I'm like part of like 30 groups or something, and they're all gonna get it. I just think this is just incredible, incredible stuff. So, um, okay. So I'm gonna be bringing you back on. We got time still, but just because everything you've been doing is just it's absolutely phenomenal. I'm glad you kind of went in this direction. But well, safe to say you'll be back on. But I'll make sure that you didn't have three interviews.
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, yeah. No, I said yes to it, Dean. I'm quite happy. The more I can engage with good people, the better. Right. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
yeah,
what I'm. My mission, cause, and calling is growth, personally, but also helping people to grow, and those people in turn, good people, right? Because we need good people who are willing to go. That's not right. I'm standing up for this, and we need that
yeah.
even more now. And so that's what.
Especially today.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, okay. We got a question. The language of learning by who?
I want to say it was the good book. It's The Language of Coaching. Just give me 1 second. I'll type it into the
Sure.
DuckDuckGo here.
Yeah.
I want to say it was Wiseman or something. Just give me 1 second. And actually, he's got a YouTube channel, The Language of Coaching, The Art and Science of Teaching Movement by Nick Winkelman. Go
Nick.
to Nick Winkelman's got a Language of Coaching YouTube channel. And if you go right to the beginning, I think it was back in COVID or something, he was talking about, like, he's giving you this information. The book's a little expensive, but it's still good. And that's for physical movement. Just make sure you know that he's teaching you about cueing, using language, external based language. I don't want to cue my students necessarily with internal language. I don't want them to think about their wrist angle when they're drawing their gun. I want them to think about what best external focus, because that's where I want their attention. Same
Okay.
thing with stick and any of that stuff. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So language of coaching. Okay.
Yeah, Chad.
Nick Winkelman. Okay. Great. Great. Okay. Awesome. All right. Okay. You're just on a tear, so I'm just gonna let you go, and then when I bring you back on, maybe we'll segue into the car system and everything you're doing. So I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
well, and I'll just mention that briefly right now because I don't want to get pigeonholed. What I'm about is learning. I certainly use firearms for that, as a thing, because I think that, like I said, time compressed environments where it's super high stakes, if you can do things there, anything else is easier, right?
Yeah.
So if you can train target discrimination on a doorway and, when you're woke up foggy because you heard the alarm go off and the whatever, well, then you can do any of that other stuff, right? And so the Ben, hey, brother, God, call me after this. I got to talk to
Florida, right?
you. So Ben is an extremely talented martial arts guy, and I'm just I've been stalking him, and now we're friends. So I'm super happy.
He's in your area, right? Or like the Orlando area?
Yep, he is. He absolutely is.
I might be coming down that way. I'm not sure when. I might be doing a joint thing. Chris Chu, some folks down there in Orlando. So it'd be great to if I meet up down there.
Oh, absolutely. Let me know when it is. If it's a seminar or something, and I can come in on it, I'd love to.
Oh my God, it would be great to have you. Matter of fact, we'll just all sit back and just let you talk.
But okay. So anyway, so then there's this car center access relock system, and that is learned it from an Englishman. He named Paul Castle. He died of cancer. It's people love it or hate it because it was unfortunately used in like John Wick movies and stuff like that. And it's just a compressed shooting system. It works very well for vehicles and things like that. And so the thing is, as I said, I don't want to get pigeonholed because that system's great, but it's a Phillips screwdriver. It's really good if you got a Phillips screw head. What I'm talking about is process. It's more. It's how to apply anything, and that's so process and content. Content is the stuff I'm trying to learn from Ben. He was showing me some great closing stuff with a stick. I totally want that. It's just a technique. It's awesome. What's more important is the process. Red dot on my gun, different trigger, drive this car, drive that car, different centers of gravity for turns, whatever. Those are all just techniques, right? What Ben and I are captivated by is how to do it more efficiently, more effectively, convey that information, that kind of stuff, right? And so, and then.
That's wow. Yeah, jeez. So I think what I wanted, you recommend what you think would be best. I would like you just to keep going on what you're kind of been talking about, as far as as far as the exercises regarding the eye, the focus, the vision, and then maybe part two going into like what you're doing as far as the car system into natural tactical and all that. What do you think? What do you think?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm just happy to have a conversation with you, Dean. We'll go by. If anybody does want anything, please just chime in on the on Facebook here is great. I'm sure surprised people are even listening right now.
No. Well, I put the word out there, spread it. So I do a pretty good job at drawing attention. And
yeah, it's cool to have a live thing like that.
Yeah, I like it because you get good questions. Folks get you get their engagement and stuff like that. So thus far 4 years running now, going on 4 years running, I should say. It's been really great having the folks comment and join in and stuff. Makes it more exciting too. All right. I want to get back to what you were talking about. I just find this stuff so just fascinating because it's actually just not only complementing what I'm currently doing, but kind of substantiating what I've been doing, but yet wasn't really able, obviously, to verbalize it or explain it in the manner that you do, which is incredible.
That's the point, right? Is that if you understand the mechanism for why things are working, then, because how are you going to pass you on? How are you going to make another instructor better, right? Well, you know, that person can be the tacit knowledge. They're just around so much. They pick up certain things, but they don't know why. It works or it doesn't work. Well, how do you even know if it works? Because if you're standard law enforcement, right? Like that law enforcement study I talked about, and I'm going to say most dojos, right? Most martial arts are block practice. After retention and transfer sucks. It's just what we got going for us is we love it. We're attending to it. Our attention is there, and we do so much of it. Now, that still doesn't mean that they're going to be any good at, a fight, right? I've seen Ben Z move, right? But I also know him as a person, how he can be calm, cool, and collected under stress and pressure, and therefore he has good transfer of those skills. He knows that because he's a part of training at this facility WAFT where our families train. I'm just starting to get ramped up with them. I love it because it's all about children, families, not just the dad, that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Yeah,
and so
family.
Yeah, and when he's training people there, he knows that he's only got them for a little bit of time. He's got to teach them principles. And what's even more important is that confidence and competence, right? Is that the willingness to act, right? I mean, what was it? I can't remember. It was definitely a Star Wars quote, right? The ability to destroy a planet pales in significance, right, to the Force, right? So it's like the willingness to act is more important than really the technique, right? Because we talked about competition shooters, very, very high-end competition shooters who can shoot a 1-inch square at 10 yards replicated, right? But drew their gun 500% slower when they were in a quote scenario with their family there.
Under pressure.
Because they weren't used to that pattern. They had no cue card, which I think is a very useful analogy. Once again, the joke being like, how old are we? Because if there's some young, they won't know what a Rolodex is for his Rolodex. But so we need to create these Rolodex cards that are linked to something. And how do we do that? We slow it down in the beginning. right? And then we link them meaningfully back to system one thinking of that the pistol or handshake or whatever being thrust to us right away. And we don't know what's going on, but we have a pattern of move my head and neck. If they're close enough to check them, either smother in on the elbow or not, because I practiced that. It's a principle. And then I'm getting concurrent activity. I'm getting my gun out. Well, scanning their hands, they're not a shoot, they are a shoot. Well, all that has to happen in 0.25 of a second.
That which is, yeah.
And if I can do that, then 5 yards, 3 yards down the hallway when I heard the glass break and someone's coming up the stairs, acquire identify or not, is super easy in comparison to that.
Yeah, compared to somebody, like you said, 8 inches away from you. I mean, yeah.
Well, you're actively, right? You're actively engaged at that time. Yeah, absolutely. So
here's a question I got for you. Like, obviously you train a lot of officers. You absolutely, advocate, being the best version of yourself, seeking out training and all that. Are you frustrated with a lot of the officers or law enforcement as a whole not taking responsibility for their self-training or even tapping into it? Or are you accepting because conflicting schedules, family, time, working overtime, etc.? I mean, do you have a lens on that, or?
Yeah, I absolutely have a lens on that. My lens is my mission, cause, and calling, as I've already mentioned. So how can I support that? And I see a lot of it where the ratios of Heraclides. Are you familiar with a book on combat by Colonel Grossman, On Combat?
Heard of it. Haven't gotten it yet. No.
Okay. It's definitely a great book to read, especially for those who are self-defense minded. Colonel Grossman, really, really great guy. And so in it, he talks about the ratios of Heraclides. Just imagine like 500 BC, a soldier on the battlefield writing back to dad, the general, right? And saying, out of every 100 men you send me, 10 shouldn't be here. 80 are just targets. Nine are real fighters, and they the battle make. But one is the warrior, and he'll bring them all home. I find very useful to think about that quote as in the 80 percenters. That's every business, especially law enforcement is a business, right? I mean, like, I can walk down the hallway and see 10 people that we all know shouldn't be in this company. They just shouldn't be here, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
80 are just targets. So what can I do for the 80 percenters? So I always say keep in the 80s alive. And I got this funny.
Yeah, the 10 you're not going to be able to. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, right? But then nines and the ones. Well, nines and ones are probably everybody who's listening right now, and the rest of it, because they're the ones who are interested, who are, seeking out more, who are doing these things extra above and beyond. I can throw a box of bullets and a DVD on whatever at Ben or any of the people listed here, Rodney Hill, I'm sure, these other guys, I don't even know them, but and they'll figure it out. They'll come back with some skills because they're nines and ones. The thing is that the nines and the ones go on some course somewhere and learn some Gucci stuff from some zoomy dude, and then they go back and try to apply it to the 80%. And I completely disagree with that.
Interesting.
Because the 80%, what really matters here, we haven't even talked about it yet. How are you thinking about how you're thinking? You don't even know that's a thing. Are you going away thinking about all those bullets there or the ones that missed over there? And how are you punishing yourself? How are you thinking about failure? How are you thinking about going forward? How are you thinking about what you're doing? Where's your confidence and competence? Right? And so the ratios of Heraclides is very interesting because if I can take the 80% and use the same training time, even the same syllabus, although I'd love to tweak the syllabus and the training time, but if I teach it in a different manner, I'll move them up their scale of confidence and competence. But I can also absolutely devastate them. because it just comes to me, look at me, I'm doing it. What's wrong with you? Just aim harder, right? Or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then what happens to these people? Well, we've never empowered them. We've never empowered them with a sense of agency. How many times you heard somebody say, I've switched, I'm eating a new way, I'm on a new diet, I'm on a new workout program, I'm doing a thing, I'm shooting. I know my cop's back home, I was just texting with, he's like, yeah, I hit the range because I got to qualify in a couple of days. Well, I don't want you to hit the range because you got to qualify in a couple of days. I want you to hit the range because you're keeping up your skill set.
Because you're right. You want to be the best version of yourself. I mean,
right. So what I'm saying, Dean, is they don't have a sense of agency, because when he's on the range, a very well-intentioned firearms instructor tells him to hold his elbow like this and do the thing and do the thing and do the thing. Just like we talked about with you saying you're telling them what to do better because you can see it. So then they get better. They might hopefully qualify, but then when you're not there, they suck again.
Yeah.
Because they're on a new diet. I don't want you to be on a diet. I want you to change your relationship with food. I want you to understand what your blood work is, which is why I'm lucky to be married to the woman I am. She's a functional medicine practitioner. She looks at my blood work and goes, you need this, this, or this. And not because it's her opinion, because your blood work says so. She ups my testosterone by giving me dark chocolate and copper. Like, it's like, I wouldn't understand. I mean, that's why she's been to med school and, on and on and on, right? And it's certainly not standard medicine either. But the point being is that you understand the mechanism. You understand what's going on at that level. So you have a sense of agency, right? I'm an agent in my life. I can go and work on my fitness or work on my stretching or work on my my relationships, right? Key point, right? My marriage, whatever it is. And if you have a sense of agency, you'll continue doing it. Well, you asked me, what about these officers who don't take that responsibility? Or have they? Are you telling me they never did? But what did we do? We took them in the military or in police college, and we used physical fitness to punish them.
I know.
Well, why would they want to continue?
Dude, yeah. I mean,
how many injuries have you got? Now I'm on a night shift. And the old me, right? My bicep tendons were torn because I didn't want to be a puss. I was feeling like crap, and I had hot calls, and I needed to come. So I do more pull-ups. Well, that was destroyed. I was burning the candle at both ends. We haven't taught them how to think about their recovery, how to think about what they need that day, how to think about how to go forward in a beneficial manner, rather than how to think about their technique, rather than to fall in love with movement and the exploration that can offer us. I mean, well, isn't that the bigger win? So now back injuries are going to go down. They're going to be, right? There's less duty to accommodates. People are going to be in the gym more because it's not about lifting 500, then 501, then 502 pounds. Now I tore my hamstring like I did, right? Well, what good did that do me?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I deadlifted 400 pounds and now I can't move now for a month. I'm in traction.
Right? So, I mean, that's how I look at your question. How can I increase agency? How can I increase their confidence and competence? How can I have them fall in love with being a better version of themselves each day? And maybe 10% never will. But those 80 for sure.
But the 80 that you're targeting. Yeah.
But the well-intentioned instructor who's just really good doesn't know how to speak to them at their level. They're just telling them these things.
I could definitely see that in your guys' industry. I mean, think about it. They're going to the academy. They're getting shouted, yelled at. I mean, and then like you said, that's their relation of the experience. And why would I want to sign up for more? But then they meet somebody like you who's coming from a total different perspective in there. And so I'm guessing you've had a lot of success with the 80%.
I absolutely. And even the 10s into the 80, and even the, and even more interesting would be when you, I don't know where you want to go with it, but I'll finish with this, that even selection, imagine then your SWAT team selection or special whatever selection, right? So now if you're treating them in this manner, that is like absolutely looking for error, excited about finding where you goofed up and knowing how to fix it. Now that you've now shown me how to fix it, right? I need you to understand. I need to see it happen, and you own that information now. It's not just because I told you. You absolutely own, which is a very powerful word and concept as it is. So now you've got people who we've redone their selections to just simply be looking for people who are trainable. Of course, the fitness has to be there in some way, shape, or form, other skill set, but really high skill set in weapon handling, I'll train that. I just need someone that's trainable.
Yeah,
And
right.
so, yeah, and so what we got is we got people self deselecting more, just saying, this has been a great experience. I gained a whole bunch of new skills and things during the process, but it's not for me. I'm self deselecting, but I'm going to go back and tell everyone else on my platoon to come here and give you the gift of their vulnerability, because you're not screwing with people,
Yeah.
you know, and that kind of thing. And now that's raising the bar for everyone. And now you're talking about culture, the residue of relationships, right? It's not coach or instructor centered, it's student centered. Now, of course, there's hell weeks and things of that nature. Absolutely agree with that as a concept, but it's on purpose. It's on
Yeah.
purpose, and then that's over.
Yeah, right. After that, then it should be over, and you shouldn't have that permanent association as far as going forward in that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Which might debilitate or make people somewhat hesitant, like you said, to want to go train because of that experience or that association of it.
Well, sure. After I was supposed to run, what did I run? 350 miles in police college. Well, I didn't want to run again after that. I'll tell you what, right? You know, like
God, like yeah, I would be. Oh my, yeah, my knees would be like, Jesus.
right? Yeah. Not to mention just the injury. If I did love it, is that what's going to get me a career?
A
Right? No, it's not.
longevity. You
It's
know what I
not.
mean? Yeah, think about longevity. I mean, right, you know? I mean, so what do they want? A bunch of 40-year-old cops that are just they're shot because of what got them there? I mean, that's yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I want someone to fall in. So anyway, so how do we go about doing that? Well, that would be, you know, if your viewers, anyone who's watching this and the recording to come, you know, send Dean some questions. Contact me anytime, but send Dean some questions, because I would love to just like, hey, these questions came from that interview. Can you go dive further on
Oh my
this? I
God.
want
Yeah.
you to, yeah, I want you to make this information yours and apply it. Right. You know, I'm happy. Yeah. Anyway.
No, I think that's a phenomenal suggestion. Like I'm definitely bringing you back on. Even questions don't come in. I don't care. I'll find something to talk to you about. I mean, all this other stuff. So I'll benefit from it. I don't
Well,
care.
you'd be shocked to hear I could talk more. But anyway, back to you, Dean. So what's resonated for you in this podcast, or is there anything to
This
clarify?
everything you say, it's just again like when I mentioned that, you know, because sometimes as instructors, you wonder, you look for feedback like, am I giving my best version to my students? Could I do something better? Could my transformation of information be better? And that, and you affirmed a lot of stuff that I'm doing. The one thing I will admit, what you touched upon, the verbalization aspect, like I'm guilty. No, yeah, you know, next time, have you exactly as opposed, okay, here, I'm going to give you energy. I want you to tell me what you feel. Like that to
Sure.
me is like that right there from today. I'm going to start to incorporate as opposed to, you know, because we as humans, we want to get our hands in there. Oh no, wait, let me fix. You know what I mean? Or you know, it's like a natural tendency. You know what I mean? We want to, especially I think with males. You know what I mean? We want to get in there and fix. You know what I mean? Where much to your point, no, let them fix it. You know what I mean? And that I think is just phenomenal. And plus, all the stuff you were talking about on the vision, and then when we segue into peripheral, yeah, you know, this is episodes. In other words, okay, I've done 400 or so episodes, give or take, you know, because I've had other folks do episodes, and the ones that really resonate with me are ones that where I'm learning something. Now, that doesn't take away from the other episodes where you know, I kind of know about the system. I'm letting this guy just get his 15 minutes of fame, his shine, and all that. And I'm going to make it a wonderful experience for him and all that. But these are the ones that really resonate and just get me so excited because I'm learning something. I'm learning to become a better me in teaching or just, you know, whatever the topic of conversation is. And this is phenomenal, phenomenal. Matter of fact, I think, well, like we were 5 minutes into when you first spoke when we had Dr. Kelly on. I'm like, he's on. I'm just like, I just got a knack for. I'm like, nope, he's coming on. So is that like help your? I hope that was a good answer for your question.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then so I'm also showing process and content, right? So I'm listening to what you're saying in order to see what you have gotten. It's like I can talk to a group, but I can only teach an individual. Now, I've talked to as many as 500 at one time, but that's okay. So I talked to 500 people. I talked at them. So what? But you can only teach an individual. Then I pointed to someone who was engaging, yourself in the crowd, right? And I said, hey, so what did you get from that? And I created a feedback loop there. And now that I know, remember, message received equals message sent. Whatever you just said back to me is the message that I sent to you. Whether I asked you to pass me that red screwdriver and you passed me the blue whatever, well, it's up to me, right, to tweak then how I'm speaking to you in order for you to get the intended message. Because whatever you're receiving is it, right? Yeah. So if I were to walk into your class and you said, do a number one strike, I would do the thing that I know is a number one. And then if I have to just relearn the numbering system alone, well, that adds to my cognitive load. And that's fine because I understand that there's a concept of keeping an art holistic and passing it on. But if you're coming to me for gun stuff and I say do an emergency reload or a combat reload or a tactical reload or a speed reload, what the heck does that mean? Everything's an emergency. I'm in a gunfight. Everything, right? So, but if I say a lockback or empty reload, you immediately know what I'm talking about. If I say a retention reload, well, that's the one where you retain, you keep that magazine, because I'm using words that are not adding to your cognitive load of what you have to even learn. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, because that could add stress, and now you're going in, your mind's just...
Well, it's information. I can't, even if I wanted to, which remember, 80s and the 10s don't really want to.
Yeah.
Even if I wanted to listen to what you're saying, I've only got so much attention, and you're occupying how much I can learn in this moment with terms and words, which is fine.
I don't even recognize.
Which is fine, but teach me the terms and words after I can relate them to the thing, right? Perception, action.
Perception, action.
Right? If I just have you come out there and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was just with Datu in Tacoma, and he's got a new or a knife set he did for one of the seminars he was at, and he's like, this is how it goes, and I went, okay, great. And then I just said, so we did it like 2 or 3 times, block practice, completely not contextual. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had a lot of experience with him, so I could understand, basically what was happening. Then I just said, hey guys, can you show me what this looks like? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. And he grabs a student. And then he's like, this is this was this was, and as the student's attacking, now it made sense. But then I said, so we did that for a little bit. Then, because his guys in the club, of course, had been doing it with him for some time now. Yeah. Then I said, hey, Datu, can you talk to me more? Can you talk to me more about what you said? The first 2 were Largo range, and the next one was a bada. And he goes, yeah, this is what's going on in my mind. And I looked, and one of the guys was like, oh, I didn't know that was that. I didn't know that was in his head. Yeah, because he'd never asked those questions to dive down on the meaning of what was going on. So if I'm standing over here like this, because I was in the class, I'm over on the side, I'm not going to do it that way because I don't have the space he did. And now I can apply the principle to the movement. He only made this kata because he wanted to show all the variations that one could practice, then take and make their own. Well, how do you make it your own? Right? Yeah. I mean, be like water. Water's in a cup, water's in a teapot, water crashes, water. Absolutely. So isn't that the point? And if that's the point, then you must understand the principles.
Wow. Yeah. You're coming back on. Oh, question came in.
Okay.
And here it is. So from chat. If you have a group with students in different levels with different needs, do you split them, teach them part of technique? Good question.
That is a good question. I'm going to have a hard time answering that without finding out more from Chad. So, um, if you have a group of students at different levels with different needs, do you
Correct.
split them and teach part of the technique? Yeah. So, most likely, I will. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go about that, Chad, but the fact that you know they're at different levels, that's the point. So give them each what they need. What I just talked about was a lot of people had the movement down 1, 2, 3, 4, reverse grip, and all the rest of it. Now that knife set, great. But what they didn't have was the subtlety of posture and how that was by dropping the arm down. That meant the next likely attack was coming in, and then what that meant, well, it wasn't just the fact that there was a Z cut there or something.
Yeah.
It was that so you need to. And I'm sure you're doing it already, Chad. But your desired end state is, of course, that they know it. But afterward, are they applying it, or are they just learning it rote? So then, yeah, absolutely, I would put two together so that one could help the other. But more importantly, I would show the expert performer and unpack what I am perceiving. And most of our community has no idea how to do that well. So, meaning, if I'm on the outside of the guy's arm or something, I've got in my mind, I was reverse grip knife here because I'm on the outside of their left arm, for example. By then activating that energy that swings their torso towards me, Kelly goes, and I say, okay, and so what are you paying attention to? And Kelly goes, oh, just the usual, man, just their elbow angle. Oh, and tell me now, what about their elbow angle? Well, when it's like this, I can see that, and when it's like that, I can. Oh, isn't that interesting? But when I'm what I'm doing when I'm the bad guy, the UK, is that I can see that he's not really looking at my elbow angle. He was gaze anchoring and attending to it. But that was the critical information to an expert performer.
Right.
Right. So Wayne Gretzky, an amazing hockey player, but I'm told not a very good coach, right? He doesn't have conscious competence of unconscious competence. He just doesn't know how to articulate. So now to wrap up this conversation, not that we have to go, but I'm just saying, I can see where an expert performer, Wayne Gretzky, or guru, grandmaster, whoever, is looking with their head, but I have no idea what they're actually looking at with their foveal vision. And I have no idea what they're attending to, peripheral or foveal vision. Furthermore, to make it more complicated, I don't know the meaning they're taking from what they are perceiving.
From what they're looking at.
In order to drive their next behavior, having already thought what the likely consequences will be and are ready for that. That is high-level martial arts, in my opinion. It's high-level movement. It's high-level cognition linked to physical skill.
That, I mean, right there is a great way to end it and go on to the next one. I mean, you couldn't have done that better.
Okay, well, Chad, if that didn't answer your question, just email me and we'll chat.
Yeah. Wow. So what? Okay, I can definitely do another one like really soon, especially during these morning hours. They work actually great if that works for you.
Yes. I have a big thing coming up this weekend that I got to keep prepping for. Maybe
next week. Yeah, it could be next week. No worries.
Let's talk offline next week or for sure the week after. Yeah. And then because I think my July is very busy. So we'll get her done. Yeah. Closer.
Yeah. If next week works for you. Yeah. I'm pretty, I mean, around this time,
well, I'd like it to be meaningful. So then if people could feedback like, hey, could you talk about that? Or how does this apply to something, so I can meet them where they're at.
No, I know. You can really dial in. No, 100%. So folks, if you're watching this, when Jeff comes back on, definitely, please send me questions so I can bring him to the podcast on part 2 and he can really dial in. So if you have an interest in this, by all means, before next week, please send me questions. Awesome. I am so glad we made this happen. I really appreciate you doing this. I loved it. loved it. And when I go to Orlando, I obviously want to meet you. It'd be nice to meet Ben too. And so yeah.
All right. Well, Jeff, my email, Jeff at natural tactical, JEFF at, and then the word natural, NATURAL, tactical, TACTICAL.com. I'm happily working in the United States on occasion through a great company, AO Sword. We're doing all sorts of stuff. So if anybody's needing anything, or even more, has something going on, because I'd love to, I love to be captivated what I didn't know. So if you got a seminar going, I'd love to come to it. So yeah.
I'm actually putting in the comment section, I'm actually putting your website now.
Oh, okay.
Just so folks have it. Naturaltactical.com.
Yeah, and my email, just reach out. I mean, there's a contact form on my website. You can just type in.
I figured I would. Yeah, they can go on there and see it, and then put it. There we go, folks. Okay, and your email is definitely on the website, as you just mentioned. Okay.
Yeah, there's a contact form there. You can click on it, and it goes to me.
And you know what? Just email again. I'm sorry. Jeff at tactical.
Tactical.com. Yeah.
All right, putting that down. All right, man. So, what event you got coming up? What big event you got coming up this weekend?
This weekend, I'm going to be at WAFT, Where Our Families Train. Happy to do that. And Ben Z will be there, which is excellent. In fact, Ben, if you're still on, call me after this, because I got to chat with you. So, yeah, right on. When you got a minute.
Awesome. Well, good luck with it. I hope it goes well.
Oh, sorry, Dean. It's Jeff at naturaltactical.com.
Oh, Jesus.
Not just tactical, yeah.
Let me, okay, folks, let me quickly change that. No problem. All right.
What am I? I'm on Instagram, Jeff _Johnsgaard on Instagram, please. I'm getting better at that media and social marketing and all that. So,
yeah. That's, I know. Jeff at Natural. Okay, folks, it's coming now. There we go. Jeff at naturaltactical.com. There we go. Okay. Wonderful. Well, hey, I hope it goes well. I'm sure there'll be a great event with you there. And so please let me know. I can make next week definitely happen. Just check out your schedule and let me know what works. If there's a day that works better next week when you get done with your event and everything.
Well, in fact, Dean, then let's talk in a couple of days. You process all this stuff, and then I'll from what you tell me, I'll know what to say next time. So that'll be easy.
Yeah. I again, I won't be. Yeah, I won't have a short question. Thank you.
Well,
all right.
Hey, it's awesome. Important, physical really skill, right? Working out or not, just all that stuff, right? Yeah, we could talk about a little bit of neuroplasticity, right? Alertness, focus, and rest, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I'm writing this down right now. All right. Neuro.
I did a presentation on it. Should be on my website. I think I did it for one of the law enforcement forums. There's a lot of stuff on my website, articles and podcasts.
Yeah, your bio. I was looking at it was incredible information on there, guys. Definitely check out the website. Yeah. All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, thank you, and I will be in touch. And hopefully next week will work, and we'll get you back on.
Okay, brother. All right.
My pleasure.
All right. Have a great day, you and your community. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, folks. That wraps up. 422. I almost had forgotten. All right, yeah, he will be coming back on. I knew this was going to be some special interview, and I imagined if I did it at night, probably more viewers. So yeah, he's going to be. Hopefully, you're going to get him on next week. So if you do have questions for him, please send them to me or himself, and he can really dial in on subject matters and that. Glad to have him on. Yeah. I thought, this was a really good one, Jolene. Yeah, folks, send me questions or him. again, so he can really dial in. It'll make it for a more interesting interview. That, and I'll definitely post an FMA discussion when it's going to happen. But hopefully, some point early next week, once he gets done with his event. All right, who's next? It's a great question. I should know the answer to this, but I temporarily don't. Sunday. It's going to be an interview where I'm going to be talking about 3 knife systems, compare and contrast. FMA, Piper, and Medusa. And we're going to go, I'm an instructor on all 3. We're going to talk about that, but I'm going to be bringing on Jay Fujimoto, who's an instructor in Medusa and FMA. Will be soon down the road in Piper. And Ken, 52 Blocks, who's an instructor in Medusa, played around Piper, and an instructor in FMA. So we're going to just talk about the 3, not like which one is better or anything like that, but just compare and contrast as well. So that's going to be Sunday, but could be one in between. If so, check out FMA discussion. It will definitely be posted. All right, folks. Until then, I will see you next time. Thank you to all that watched and commented.